What's so great about all these things that we're building is that I really feel like these are things that I would use and want and enjoy. And so, like, it's a pleasure to build them because you're just putting in all the things that you'd want as you go, exactly as you want them. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's the beauty in it.
I just,
You're not stuck anymore with if you have an idea, you've
yeah,
then got to try to explain that idea to a developer.
yeah. And then
They have to then get it, and then they have to go build it, and it could be taking, it could be 2, 3 weeks before we see
yeah,
if it works.
normally is, yeah. And normally you have to settle for something which isn't exactly what you wanted, just because you're just like, oh, it's ready now, or like I haven't got enough money to keep going with iterations.
Yeah, and that's it really. Time is money ultimately, and if we can do something in 30 minutes instead of 3 weeks, then we're going to have to do it that way. It's really simple as that, really. I mean, if it doesn't work and we can't seem to fix it, then yeah, quite happy to pay an expert to come and fix it or to help. But so far, we haven't come across that wall yet, and I don't know it's because we're not exactly creating anything superbly hard to make from a developer point of view.
Yeah, Indie Gamers was pretty straightforward. The Gmail app, I think most people would consider that to be a relatively complicated thing to build. 9 hours, but really, I think we could do that in about 4 hours now.
Maybe even less now we know what we're sort of doing.
Yeah,
And I think the big issue that developers seem to be having at the moment, and you can see it pretty prevalently on X, because people are basically just attacking vibe coded sites with the regular crap, which happens to anyone, not just vibe coders. Basically, people are so against vibe coding as you're not developers, you shouldn't be able to build apps. Essentially, you're only allowed to build apps if you know how to code, and I don't understand that mindset at all.
yeah.
Makes no sense to me at all.
Like it's some sort of secret cult, and vibe coders are not allowed in. I don't
It's
care.
really strange.
Like
It is really strange.
I don't care if I'm not a developer, as long as I can build apps fast and time is money, and I can get the job done. I literally give zero poos what people call me. Or
Yeah. There was one guy specifically who launched a project, but obviously like all his like env files were public, which wasn't the smartest thing. But if you're using cursor in windsurf,
yeah,
it doesn't do those things for you. So you need to know about those things.
yeah,
Whereas, lovable boat and everything, they're constantly saying, don't ever show an API key to me, or don't put it in the chat. Never do that. Make sure it's, blah, blah, blah. So it's doing a lot of the work for you, but not all of the work. So you still need to do RLS policies. You still need to do cross-site scripting policies and, all the irregular attack things. And something that we just literally implemented into Indie Gamers, because we're not immune to this. People are trying to sign up with fake emails just to annoy you for some reason, because they've got nothing better to do with their time for some reason. They want to try to screw you or try to cost you money. So we noticed that maybe 150 fake emails tried to sign up. And obviously then, because Superbase was trying to send verification emails to emails that didn't exist, they were then getting bounce backs. And then Superbase puts restrictions on your account because of that. So thanks to whoever you are, you made
it better. We hadn't even put this stuff in because we just thought this tiny little project wouldn't have caught anyone's eye. But the fact that someone can be bothered enough, pathetic enough to try and do that, this of it being live for 2 days was funny. But thank you, because you've sorted it out.
Yeah, so thanks for whoever that was, because now we've implemented a Superbase feature called H Capture, which is basically it's free. You're free to use, and basically now on the register page and the login page, there's now a capture that people have to complete before they can either log in or register. And yes, that is annoying for existing users because now there's an extra step, and there's an extra step for people that run on register as well. But it stops bad actors essentially.
Yeah, I think people are used to that now as well. It's everywhere. I certainly don't even blink twice about it. I get annoyed when sites are constantly asking you to 2FA everything. It's like, oh,
yeah. You know what we should do is create another capture company, but it's you have to complete a game before you get through, and it's like really hard. Or you have to complete a Sudoku before you can log in. So only smart people can get in.
That would be really funny. Yeah, like natural selection of marketing. Yeah. But like, I was like shocked because that had only been live 2 days, and it was a tiny little project. We hadn't even thought about like security because, frankly, we just built it, put it live. We're like essentially beta testing it, and I just didn't think anyone would be like pathetic enough to care about like having a bash it trying to like hack such a tiny project. But as you say, like thanks to whoever did that, because it's actually, you know, very early on made it much better. So that's good. But yeah,
That's the thing, you know, as we built this, we did have some security in mind, and because of what's prevalent on X, and everyone's obviously bashing on vibe coding, and basically you shouldn't be building apps if you're not a developer, which I just it's ridiculous
I just don't understand
opinion. That's ridiculous. Because you know, these people that are getting into it now, like me and Matt, for example, we're learning a lot about how apps string together and how they work and the logic and everything. So actually, this is a great way for people to learn how to actually code. Yes, they're not actually coding just straight away, but as you dig deep into it and you can see the files and you can see how it all built together, you're learning. You are learning.
yeah.
But ultimately, I think, and I'm not the first person to say this, Greg from OpenAI said it. He says within the next year, we'll be using AI for 100% of code. And who would know better than the guy who works at OpenAI, for Christ's sake?
I know. I have to say, I agree. I was speaking to another developer that we know who used to work at Q, and he was saying that he thinks that the natural progression of developers is that they will essentially become proofreaders for AI written code, and you know, and then eventually become not obsolete, but you know, their job will not look how it looks or how it looked a few years ago. You know, where they have to sit down and do everything from scratch, from the ground up. It will essentially be heavily like AI produced or aided, and they will just have small tweaks to make to it. So like at the moment, I think developers are who are open to it are using AI to help them with small productivity things, and you know, and it's like slight checks or something using AI, but it'll be the complete reverse in like a year's time. But I could see it being just if you know if AI can do all the things that it has done thus far, like it will learn to check its own stuff and be perfect. It will just it's come so far so fast. I just don't see it not being able to do everything completely by itself.
No, and it'll do all the security stuff.
And I think this is why developers are so, you know, angry at it, because they've clearly spent many years honing their craft, and it's been like one of the careers that people will say, oh, if you're in software, you know, engineering or you know, like development in some way, you're pretty safe and you're going to be able to earn loads of money. And all of a sudden, it's like under threat. It's not a new thing for someone like me whose skill set was predominantly in writing and languages and you know structuring things and project management and ideas, because I became obsolete years ago because of AI. So now I just had to get over myself and get over it and just get on board. And it was in some ways a real big favor, because it's made things a lot more fun now.
Yeah.
But you just the fact of the matter is, whether you love it or hate it, vibe coders are shipping products very fast and they look really good, and there's not that much they can't do. And all these people attacking sites to try and make a point that are vibe coded, you could do that to normal coded sites that haven't been vibe coded. So it's a completely redundant exercise that just makes them look pathetic and wastes their time. Anyway, moving on.
No, is that, yeah, and Charles, let's get this straight.
Yeah.
We are totally respectful of developers, just in the same way
Yeah.
you took years to learn about what you do. We also took many years to learn what we do. Over the years, you know, I'm almost 40 now, done lots of different things in my time, from like building, plastering, tiling, to being a photographer, where people say, well, you're not a photographer, but then I ended up doing, you know, 50, 60 weddings. So probably makes me a photographer, but you know, I'm getting paid for it. And obviously then got into design. Again, I didn't have any school or education with this. None of it, ever. I've had no education, essentially. So I think by doing things, you learn. And if that, at the moment, if that is by using AI to do it, then fucking do it. I don't see why that's such a bad thing.
That's
I
brilliant.
really don't see it. And to be honest, as a developer, if you use these tools, and we're using that sort of like the, you know, the play school version of, you know, Cursor and Windsurf, who are, you know, more developer focused. But if you're using those tools, your productivity should be at least 10 times.
No, more than that.
At least.
More than
Yeah.
that.
if you don't truly believe in the code that it spits out and you think, well, it's complete
Gibbering.
gobbledygook, yeah, then I suppose what can you do about that? That's fine. But I don't see how we as non-coders can produce websites, completely custom websites like Indie Gamers, for example, and now, Taylor Times. I don't think, how can we manage to produce websites that actually work, where people can sign in, they can use the tool? How can they not? Because they know code.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, go back to the idea of like developers becoming extinct one day. Again, I don't think that's the case either. So, and the reason I'll say this is, I think if you could say there's probably 1% of the world that are developers right now. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Then there was tools like Bubble, Webflow, things like this, where you could create websites without code, or you can create apps with no code. No code was maybe 5-6 years ago now. It's the same premise. So you don't need to be able to code to create apps. So it's essentially the same thing as that, but now you use AI to do it. So it's no different. And when people were building it with no code, there wasn't all these people going out saying, it's going to be, you've got so many security flaws, I'm going to attack you on purpose. So is this just truly a threat? Do they see it as truly a threat because they actually realize, oh shit, it's actually pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Maybe.
I think otherwise they wouldn't even give it the time of day. It would just be ignored, or I think they would almost be encouraging of it. In like a sort of like, oh, that's cool, yeah, like I hope it sort of starts to work out, or like, yeah, obviously you can only get so far with it. Like I feel like it would be the complete polar opposite, if it weren't a threat. The fact is, it's scarily good, and so it can only be, a frustration to developers, and I totally get that. But I don't understand where this sort of hatred comes from, or this like developer versus vibe coder thing. It's not a thing. Vibe coders don't see it like that. They think it's cool because they've never had the chance to build it like that. It's incredible that you get the opportunity to be able to do something.
Now we're going to see probably more creative applications being made because the creatives were never really the developers.
Well,
That might sound horrible, but generally developers can't design.
no, yeah, no, that is, I think, largely true. I think even developers will admit that that's the case. You'll get a few rare breed that can,
Yeah.
but even mate, in my situation, I'm neither a developer nor technical, but I can build pretty good apps. Like I was really proud of Trader Dash and like how fast that took shape. And how complex it was. Like objectively, that is a very complicated, complex app to build. The way that dashboard worked, with everything being modular, being completely flexible, you can completely sort of customize all of the widgets. It would tap into lots of different sort of connections and financial data streams. Very cool. Very
It's,
cool.
it's 10 to 20K's worth, isn't it? Straight away.
Yeah.
If you would get a developer to do it.
More. And I was just like sat there on my laptop with no design experience, no coding experience, other than learning HTML and CSS like in 2013 or something from a For Dummies book. And I completely forgotten it. And I can do that. So you don't even need design. It just helps. Like if you can code, it just helps because you can just do things a bit faster.
Yeah. And one thing else I want to say, going back to the whole, like there's 1% of people in the world that, and as AI gets better and more people start to build their own apps, that percentage might rise to 5 to 10% of people in the world, creating apps, which means there's still going to be 90 to 95% of people still requiring apps and services because they're not going to build their own apps. They don't give a shit. They're still just going to be as they are right now. If they wanted to go and build an app right now, they would just go and pay a developer to do it.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
So I think there's still going to be plenty of opportunities for developers and now vibe coders to create apps and make money.
Can I ask you one question on this topic before we sort of go back into the Taylor Times build, because we've gone off at a bit of a tangent, but it's an interesting one. What do you think that people will be doing in terms of like agencies? Like I saw somewhere someone from where were they from? I think they might have been from Lovable, the team, and they were saying they sent a screenshot of like Lovable agency as a search on Google. It like massively spiked.
Yeah, it's going up. Yeah.
So like, do you think that Lovable agencies will be a thing for a while? How long will that last? Do you think it's successful? How will that look?
I feel it's, again, this sort of proves my point about the percentage thing, because there's people out there where they clearly need an application, right? So they want someone to help build it. they could go to Lovable and to type in what they want and it will start building it for them. But they're still looking for someone to help them build it in Lovable. So a clear indication that there's still going to be a massive percentage of people that aren't going to build these apps themselves.
Yeah.
And they're looking for someone to help. So yes, we could probably launch an agency today and be able to build most applications for them in Lovable, in Bolt, in whatever. There's opportunities out there for everyone, essentially. It depends on what you want to do with your day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But because I was thinking, like, you could quite happily just go and take on freelance contracts at the normal development price and sort of, hand them, basically do it in Lovable. But the issue with that is, then you're handing them a code base and saying, well, here's the CMS, it's something called Lovable. And they'll look at it and be like, oh, it's built it in Lovable. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, how do you hand that over? Like,
well, I suppose you just give them the GitHub repo. Job done.
Yeah, I know, but so many people are used to like being handed like a clean CMS like WordPress. It's like, here's your login details. All you have to do is do this, and that's their site. Then they've got control over their site. Whereas it's a bit different if you just give them the GitHub link. I guess.
Well, I suppose the people, they don't even want
control.
Like, let's just say someone purchased Indie Gamers from us, right? Like they paid for us to build it for them. We would basically just give them the admin link, wouldn't we? Where they could log into admin so they can manage users. They probably wouldn't even want access to Superbase and GitHub and Lovable. They would still just pay us to continue managing it for them going forward.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was interesting because it was a really clear spike in searches. And what is really funny, and it always seems to happen like this, is that morning I'd had this thought, like, gosh, imagine starting an agency, specializing in Lovable. Like, it would be really fun, and I bet that would go down really well. And because you could get so bespoke with what people want, whereas previously it'd be like, oh, there's not really a WordPress theme that fits that, or I can do that, but it'll look more like this, Whereas now it's like, yes, I can do exactly what you want. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need.
That's all you need. And so, like, and then I went on to X, and sure enough, saw this, and that happens to me all the time. Like, you have a business idea, and then all of a sudden, X serves up like 15 business ideas that have just done it. Entrepreneurs that have just shipped the same idea.
The thing is, we did it with BlogDroid, didn't we? We've built a way to generate blogs that are really next level that no one else is doing at the moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, our BlogDroid prompt's about 160 pages long, isn't it?
It's a long old prompt, and I won't go into it because there's too many secrets that have taken, many, many months of learning and optimizations.
Half a year.
And then, because of that, we decided to create an agency out of it. And, you could essentially do this with Lovable now. If you've got a half a brain and you know something about how applications work in general, you're going to be great at Lovable, essentially.
Yeah. I think ultimately, vibe coders have got no beef with developers. We, as you said earlier, we respect them. And it's the reason we're so excited about being able to create stuff is because it was so beyond our realms of, and, with out of our reach to be able to do it, because we know how hard it is. That's why it's so cool and we're excited about it. And our priority isn't necessarily pristine code, but just, does it work? If it works, great. And it sort of guides you and tells you, you need to put in security here, you need to do this. So it's not really a developer versus vibe coder thing. It's just a fact that, like, different priorities. I don't really care as a vibe coder what I'm called. Call me whatever you want. I couldn't care less. I don't want to be a developer. It's just, that's the easiest thing to compare yourself to, because you're essentially someone that produces code that produces an app.
That's the thing. Ultimately, we are now developing an application. We're just doing it in plain English instead of code. It's literally the same thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I hope that this sort of feud, dissipates quickly, and as people realize that, because all of this nonsense hacking and stuff to prove a point doesn't serve any point, really. It doesn't serve to prove any point, because you could do it on a normal coded site. So it's redundant. But it was an interesting conversation. Should we head back into Taylor Times and keep building that?
Yep. Sounds good.
Nice.